Hey, hey. Okay, good evening. How are you? Now, I want to share something. Actually, this is actually very random, but so today I went to this school. Let me try and share my screen so you can see. Um, anyway, does it really matter? No, the school is called Summerfields, okay? It's a prep school. And I think it's in the realm of the league, but it's an Ivy League school, of course. But so whenever I'm in that kind of space, I'm always, and especially because I've got a daughter or two daughters anyway. I've got a daughter of similar age and scope. So I try to always relate it to my child, and I think, okay, what can I teach them from where I have been to? Okay, so. And this came to my head. This is something I've heard before, and the term or the word is called serendipity. Do you know what that means? Okay, so that's why I'm trying to deliver this message. Now, it's why you do not need a perfect plan. As a child, they try to predict your life to plan it, and but sometimes you need to understand that random might be your superpower. So, and I'm not saying do not plan, okay? But I'm trying to infuse an extra bit of flavor into you, and so you can see how these things work. Okay, and that's magic. How can you not plan this magic? Okay, I hope I'm going to make it interesting. But my question is, now let me ask you, can you imagine you leading your life not knowing what's going to happen next? Okay, without having a true plan, no idea what the next great opportunity will be, but your eyes are wide open all the time. Can you imagine that? Well, I can, and that's me. That's literally how I approach everything. So I'm asking you again, you're imagining living your life, not knowing where to go next. No perfect 5-year plan, no guaranteed path, no script, no certainty, just your wide open. You're ready, move. Now, if you're a teenager and you listen to me here, in your case, you have probably been told, or pick a path, pick a subject, pick a career, plan it out, lock it in. And I'm not saying, planning is useless, but I'm trying to say something a little bit bigger. So some of the best things in your life will not be planned, and there will be serendipity. Okay. So if you don't know what that word means, I think I've said it again. It's when something amazing happens that you did not expect, but you were ready for it. And that's the key. You have to be ready. Now, I told my daughter, 7-year old, we had a family meeting, and I said, serendipity, say it after me. And she did. I said, so I gave her the meaning. And I said, so imagine you going to the town center. And I said, so give me someone famous. She said, Michael Jackson. I said, in fact, that's a great example. Okay. Yeah, I know. Let's forget the cases. Anyway, we're talking about Michael Jackson, the star. Now, you walk in towards the town center and you meet Michael Jackson, and he said, "Oh, Grace, hello. Take a ticket. Come to my next show. Would you be excited?" She said, "Of course I will be." I said, "There you go." But I said, "How did it happen?" She said, "Because I left the house." Fantastic. It's happened because you left the house. Now, that's when serendipity happens. You show up, you try things, you experiment, you talk to people, you explore. And because you are moving, something unexpected collides with you. So you think about this. If you never leave your room, how much can collide with you? In fact, I'm sure you're going to agree with me, and that is very little. Okay? And I'm going to try and share a few stories around these things I'm saying. So I hope I'm looking at the screen. I don't know. So, number one, I'm sure you've seen me now. I think I've shared it a few times. I'm on TV, a financial analyst, now international affairs analyst. So how did this happen? One day I did a webinar on the stock markets. And when I did the webinar, one of the guys liked it. I don't know the guy, I've never met him before. He said, "Can you find me this guy?" And he went on Twitter, and he contacted me and he said, "Oh, I'm gonna put you on TV tomorrow. Right now, I'm gonna make it happen. Can you do it?" So I spoke to my wife. My wife said, "Oh, but how much are they gonna pay you?" And I said, "No, everything is not about payments. I want to push my brand out there." My wife didn't like it, but anyway, 6 years later, I'm still doing it. And I remember one day I have an engineering background and maths, very analytical, uh, less finance. So one day they addressed me, the financial analyst, as a correspondent. They were talking, the anchor passed on to me, and I, had to speak on the economy. So I told my mom, I said, "Oh, I don't like the fact that they addressed me as financial analyst because my background is engineering." My mom said, "What do you mean? That's who you are right now. You got to take it." I said, "Okay, fine." But anyway, 6 years now, I'm still in that plan. So, well, not the plan, I'm still part of the team. And I remember someone said, "Oh, they were doing the jingle and I saw your face." I said, "Well, it is what it is." They sent me the pic, you sent me the video. I said, "Well, there you go." So now, the problem with the plan is you've been told your whole life, do well in school, get good grades, pick the right subjects, go to the right university, get the right job, which is very clean. It sounds very safe. But this is the uncomfortable truth. Most adults don't actually know what they are doing. They are figuring it out as they go. And the ones who build interesting lives, they didn't follow a perfect straight line. They followed curiosity, opportunity, momentum. They followed what was working. Again, that is serendipity. Now, how did I get a job when I was younger, at university? After university, I worked with Jaguar Land Rover. I did some, pardon me, project with Rolls-Royce, British Steel. Now, this is another story I'm trying to share quickly. I will not make this too long, by the way. Now, as I was saying, sorry about that. There was silence. Okay, so I did it. I finished from Leeds University, my first degree, and I went to University of Manchester, and then I got the first job. I got the job. Sorry. I did a job interview. Sorry, we had to take an assessment test, and I didn't do particularly well the first time, to be honest. I think the internet timed out, and then the second time I went and I did it again. They told me to do it again. And again, it failed. The internet failed me again. Somehow, I still did not complete the test, which means it was a failure. But they still employed me, and I went to them after. So they invited me for the final stage of the interview. It was a 2-day interview at the hotel, and I did ask them. I said, "Why did you invite me for the interview, despite me failing?" They said, "Oh no, because we get people from certain universities for engineering. That's number one. Number two is the fact that, I was very scared. I didn't know what to do. I've never worked a day in my life until university. So, I'm in proper job anyway. So that was because I showed up, okay? I wanted to be there and I did. Now, there's what they call the Bayesian baby mindset. But let me explain. There's a Bayesian formula, okay? It's used to calculate the probability of an event happening. Probability is the chance that something will happen. But this is based on prior knowledge and the conditions that might be related to it. So what do I mean by that? So if I constantly tap your left hand, okay? I do it every 5 seconds. So the next few seconds, you see my hand coming. What would you do? You're gonna move that particular second left hand. Why? Because that's where I go for. That's what I target all the time. Okay, and that's what Bayesian formula is all about. So it's just to calculate the probability that something's going to happen based on the prior knowledge that you had. Okay, and of course, whatever factor is related to it. So now, when babies learn, this is interesting actually. They don't sit there making a 10-year plan, do they? They experiment, they try something, and if it works, they repeat it. If it doesn't, they try something else. And that's how intelligence grows. The baby tries to walk, they fall, they go back. So that's what in science or in computing, they call that iteration. Okay, you keep repeating the same loop. So they experiment, they observe, they adjust, they repeat. They experiment, they observe, they adjust, they repeat, and by chance, they improve. Now, teenagers are naturally built for this as well. But somewhere along the way, adults start telling you, stop experimenting, pick one thing, stick to it, be realistic. You mean realistic? Realistic often means small. So why can't you predict your future? Now, there's something nobody likes to admit. You cannot predict your life. You don't know who you'll meet next year. You don't know what skill you'll randomly fall in love with. You don't know which teacher, a coach or friend or video will change your direction. You actually don't know. And that's not scary because oftentimes I remember, I don't even know. But guess what? That's exciting. I went to university 4 times. And I remember the last degree, somebody said, "Why are you studying?" I said, "I just don't know what I wanted to do." Is it because you don't want to work? I said, "I don't know." But this is because it means your life is not limited to what you can currently imagine. But I mean, in my case, I didn't want to stay idle. So I just kept moving. But that's all I knew. But how did I become? So I'm going to share another quick story. I think you probably know I do trade, heavy in finance. And so how did I become a trader and how far have I gone in my case, for example? So it's, again, I stumbled on this by chance. I have been listening to, never really into finance, to be fair. I just listened to a lot of tapes and videos and everything. And they just talk about just buy this and hold it forever, buy this and hold it for 100 years. I read a lot of books and I think by chance I started practicing. I lost money and, I said I didn't mind. I remember my mom said, "Oh, there's some things that some people actually do. They take the money the same day or a few days, not the one you have to buy and leave it for, years and hundreds of years, tens of years." But anyway, so now that's what happened to me. And I started getting results. So I started diving deeper. I read a book called sorry, it's not a racist book or anything. It's called Why Should White Guys Have All the Fun? I can't remember the author, but that's the title of the book. Why Should White Guys Have All the Fun? And that's one of the most inspiring books. I talk about this book all the time wherever I go. Okay. And now, as a result of my trading activity, which I haven't actually kept very quiet, there's some names I cannot mention, unfortunately, but I have been out there. I've trained quite a lot of people. I think it's changed the course of the path of my life entirely, totally. I can tell you that. I have been on, been research degrees, but when it comes to the finance in the markets, I think that's just something totally different, you know, from my learnings anyway. And that's something, again, that yes, I did stumble into it, but I didn't stumble into it by walking and by just playing it safe. And I'm not talking about risk in this case. We're talking about serendipity by being very random. That's how I stumbled into it. And it made sense to me anyway. So we have the serendipity formula, which is something I want to talk about as well. And that is that it follows a pattern. So what does it look like? Exposure, curiosity, action, connection, and then what? Iteration. So exposure, you've got to put yourself in new places. Curiosity, you stay interested instead of judging. Action, you've got to engage. Connection is something clicks. And iteration, you build from there and you rebuild. And then suddenly something that looks random becomes the next chapter of your life. Now, teenagers especially, why do they have an advantage or preteen? One, they have less to lose. Flexibility is there. You have the time, and it's a massive advantage. Adults get stuck. Why? Because they have mortgages, they have responsibilities, they have routines, they have the fear of looking foolish. But you, of course, you can try, you can fail, you can pivot, and that freedom is what? It's priceless. So, routine has danger, and that's very important. It's comfortable, extremely predictable, it feels safe. but too much routine even kills serendipity. If every day looks exactly the same, you will not collide with anything new. You will not meet new people, you will not discover new skills, and you will not uncover hidden talents or hidden strengths. Your world will shrink, and serendipity requires what? Motion consistently. Now, you need to understand that I don't know is power. Now, here's something powerful. Saying I don't know is strength. If you admit you don't know everything, then you're open to learning anything. If you pretend you already know, then you stop growing. Growth happens in degrees, one small shift at a time. One conversation, one book, one idea, one risk, one step. No risk, no story. If you avoid all risk, you avoid all story. You avoid all transformation, you avoid all magic. No risk, no reward isn't just about money. It's about identity. The most confident people you admire, they build themselves through iteration, through trying, through failing, through adjusting, through serendipity. I mean, we could talk about social media versus real life as well. Let's be honest. A lot of people spend hours scrolling, and scrolling feels like exploration, but it's passive. Serendipity requires participation. You don't get life-changing connections from watching. You get them from doing, from speaking up, from showing up, from creating. This is not supposed to be a motivational. I think it's meant to be educational, and I hope this is, you're learning something from what I'm saying. You do not confuse some consumption with movement. Not telling you I'm all that. People shaping the world are not in the office queue. So, going by all the experience I've shared, I'm not just trying to say, oh no, I'm all that. Okay. But let me go back to the school I went to today. So there's a story. I was talking about the mother. She has two kids in that school. Well, she has two kids. One is in the school, one is in another school. Two top leading schools in the UK, literally top five, full stop. The kids are there on scholarship, and I'm talking about 50, 60 grand a year, and the school is purely the kids are there for free, which means they're getting paid to learn. That's where I see it anyway. So I told my daughter one day, I said, imagine they pay you £60,000 to be in this school. And she said, oh wow, that'll be amazing. So there you go, it will be. But guess what? The woman puts herself there. She did apply, she made the move, she made the phone calls, she took the steps. Now, then there's another boy who's graduated from another school, Eton. That's where most of the prime ministers have come from. And I was speaking to the parents, and I said, "Oh no, oh sorry, please tell me what's going on with this boy." And she said, "Oh yeah, he's now on a work experience with Jaguar Land Rover." Oh, did I mention that name earlier? There you go. So I thought to myself, initially, I've always been a bit concerned about where my life is taking me. Did I really fail because I didn't get that main career route that my friends, my old friends got? I'm home doing my thing, finance. I call myself a money manager, but I'm only managing my money. But guess what? I realized that most children or the kids kind of end up at the same point where I've just left. So I thought to myself, actually, no, you haven't failed at all because people left this position that you left, that you have been. And I said, what's the future of this kid? She said, oh yeah, we went to an investing, or he went, is at an investing seminar today, which they paid for, investing course for one day, and eventually they want to pivot to finance. And I thought, oh, maybe I haven't failed. Maybe I've been doing the right thing. I've just been scared to say openly. So the minute I got home, I called my daughter. We had the meeting I talked about earlier. Got 15-year-old daughter, and we just had a meeting about serendipity and how she should always put herself out there, if that makes sense. Now, how do you invite serendipity to your life, which is the essence of these things? So here's how you do it. You've got to say yes more often. Talk to people you normally would not. Try one thing outside your comfort zone. You've got to learn a skill that has no immediate purpose. Ask questions. Follow interesting ideas. And here's the biggest one. Don't ever plan your life so tightly that nothing new can enter. Leave space. Now, what if you fail? Of course, failure is good. It's data. It tells you what direction you need to take and what direction not to take. That's iteration. That's experimentation. That's growth. If you treat failure as an identity, then you shrink. If you treat failure as information, then you expand. Now, the long game is you don't build a meaningful life in one moment. It's built in degrees, one small shift, another. Looking back, it looks intentional, but looking forward, it feels random. You've got to trust the process of motion. Now, why serendipity feels magical? When something unexpected aligns, it feels like magic. But usually, it's this. You moved, you explored, you stayed open, you acted, and the world responded. So serendipity is opportunity meeting preparation. If you remember, you cannot live forever. And here's something real. You don't live forever, not yet. So why live small? Why live predictable? Why shrink your curiosity? You don't get unlimited resets. You get now. And now is meant to be explored. Now, here's the final message, just to wrap the whole thing up, is that you cannot predict your life, even though you thought you can. But you can prepare yourself to recognize opportunity. You've got to be open. You've got to be curious. You've got to be brave enough to say, I don't know. And you have to be willing to experiment. Serendipity rewards motion. It rewards motion. The world is not linear. It's responsive. Move, explore, iterate, and let life surprise you. Because the best chapters of your story, they haven't even been planned. Now, and I'm not saying one is right or wrong. Guess what? I'm actually saying that. Yes, we all get saddled with routine, but serendipity will add flavor to your life. Once you stop experimenting, I bet you it's a race to the bottom. I want you to take something from what I'm saying, and that is to be opportunistic. I hope that helps, and that's why I thought I should share this.